Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this masterclass series. This is going to be an amazing masterclass. It's one of my favorite subjects to talk about in leadership and in business because it's one of the fastest ways to move forward in life and in your business. And it's also one of the fastest ways to bring on anxiety, pain, and a whole lot of worry. And so I want to make sure that as we start this masterclass off, that you have the right understanding of what we're doing today. So we're going to be talking about hiring, but we're also going to be talking about when to hire in the process of building a multi-million dollar family business. And this is an awesome endeavor to be able to embark on. It's an awesome journey to launch into with your family and with or maybe your brothers and sisters or whatever. But if you have the opportunity to launch, build, and have the dream to do so, then you are in the right place because this is the thing that I do every single day. I do it every day, all day long. Some days I work 12 hours, and by the end of the day, I'm looking back and I'm like, man, did I even work 12 hours? Like, what did I did a lot of really of interesting things all day long. And that's awesome because I'm doing what I love to do and working with people I love. So, um, if you're here, we are talking about building a multi-million dollar family business. And I'm going to get to an introduction in a little bit, but I just want to get to a couple realities in that relate to this specific broadcast today. And last week, guys, by the way, last week after the masterclass, I went on to uh, TikTok. There's so many apps out there these days, I'm forgetting them. But I went on to TikTok and I did a live, which I'm going to do the same thing after this. So after this masterclass shuts down, I'm going to move off the channel and then I'm going to go straight to a live on TikTok. So if you want to ask me questions or talk or interact with me there, feel more than free to do that. I would love to see you over there. All right. As we get into the content today, there's some really important things to acknowledge as you start thinking about and dealing with the subject of hiring your very first time as you're moving into hiring for your family business. So listen, hiring too early causes problems. Hiring too late causes problems. Hiring the wrong person causes huge problems. And at first, hiring is scary. We're going to deal with all these as we move forwards. Now, listen, my name is Jason Ellinger. I've been an entrepreneur for the past 20 years. There was a stint in that 20 years that I served in the United States Air Force, a proud veteran of the United States Air Force. And it was Veterans Day yesterday. It was super cool. And just reminded me of all the great men and women in our country that serve and will never be noticed for their service, but they do it each and every day, and they do it selflessly, and they got our backs. And so it's just an incredible honor to be among those veterans who served. So um, I after that, well, before that and after that, my 5 year stint in the United States Air Force, um, I was an entrepreneur. Before that, my brother and I, when we were 12 years old, we started a landscaping company, and we worked at I mean I was there doing this landscaping company until left off to the United States Air Force. That transferred to my to the other siblings at that time, and they carried that on for a while. And so after my stint in the United States Air Force, we got out, and my wife and I got married while I was in the Air Force, and then my wife and I started the company that we're operating today, and we've been doing this for about 12 years now. The company is called Taika Translations. You can check it out, www.taikatranslations.com. And it's a company that we started on a card table in our living room, and we scaled it to a multi-million dollar company, and we're continuing to build it as big as we can possibly get it. And we do it with our family and those team members who would come in and help us as we continue to grow this thing. So it's an awesome experience. This is actually what we do. The content that what I'm talking about today is stuff that is in practical. I mean, we are doing it right now. We have done it for the past 12 years in this space, and we are currently doing that, and we will continue to do that as long as God gives us the ability to do this business and to grow and scale it. And so um, when you're running a mission-driven business, everything is about the mission of the company and what you're doing to grow and prosper and to influence the world for good. And so So when you have, I think that's the difference between so many companies out there. So many people get the wrong mindset when you jump into business or when you jump into any kind of sphere. You're just like, I want to get in so I can make a bunch of money, a big old pile of money. And while that is great and that is really awesome part of it, but if you don't have a deeper and greater mission than that, you're going to sink the boat. It's going to get too heavy, too fast, especially just like in the subject that about to talk about today, the subject of actually hiring and hiring well. um, Hold on. Let me make sure that people can hear me. I just got a message that I can't hear you. Can you hear me now? Like Verizon. Can you hear me now? Oh, thank God. Okay, you scared me for a second there, but thank you, Karina, for hopping in and letting me know. All right, so back to what I was saying. If you don't have something that drives you to do what you do deeper than just making a pile of money, you will quit, because owning and operating is a family business, not for the faint of heart. You're going to encounter challenges that money cannot cover. And so that's one of the reasons, but it's rewarding beyond your wildest imagination, and it's the fulfillment of the incredible dreams throughout your lifetime. So I want you to have some of that if you're ready for it. And if you're part of this masterclass today, I can probably bet that you are ready to do that, and you have that sometime in your future. Maybe you just need a little, strengthening of the structure before you launch it, or maybe you just need a little more knowledge, or maybe you're in it right now and you can use some guidance as you work through the different processes, or maybe you've been trying to hire people and just like 3 or 4 or 5 hires that just didn't work out. And I hope that I can help you with that today, because I think this is going to be a very, very important session. I do a lot of these sessions on hiring and team members and leadership and stuff like that, and you can find that other content on YouTube, and I would encourage you to go watch it. But right now, as we get into this, I hope that I provide you a very powerful value in the realm of hiring, and that I put the cookies low enough on the shelf that you can actually engage with and just implement, and just put it into implementation right away. So if you have not done so already, I would really appreciate it. It would really help me. It would boost the algorithm. It would cause it to be seen and more people to be able to take advantage of the content that we're putting out. If you would subscribe, please like, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell, and do one more solid for me. I would really appreciate it if you would copy the contents and share it with somebody in your life who is thinking about starting a business. Share it with a teen who's in high school who wants to start a business in the future, or share it with your uncle, your cousin, maybe your brother, maybe your son or daughter, whoever's running, who's thinking about and would desire to open a company. And if you've got any of those scenarios in your life, I mean, I would really appreciate it if you would share our content with them, and that they would become a part of the community that we have here that's growing each and every day. We've got some of the highest numbers in all of our content that we're broadcasting over the past few months, and really excited to see that. So thank you to whoever watching and helping us do that. So, all right, as we get into the content today, these things are reality. Hiring can be one of the biggest blessings of your life, and it also can be one of the most challenging, painful experiences of your life. And so, what I would love to do is help you to make it one of the biggest blessings of your life, instead of one of the biggest curses. So, let's get into it. All right. So, knowing when to hire and reducing the fear part of it. We're going to deal with this a little bit different view as we go through the next couple of slides. So stick with me on this. Um, in order to reduce some of the fear around knowing when you are actually ready to hire, the number one question you need to ask yourself: are you making enough money to cover all of your expenses? In essence, are all of the expenses that you and your family need to live and to operate with, are they all covered? Because if you're working 8, 9 hours a day, 10 hours a day, and you're not making enough money to cover all your expenses, but you're hoping that maybe if you add another person, you'll be able to make more money to cover all the expenses, and then you try that and you find out that doesn't work that way, um, then you're going to turn hiring into a nightmare. So you have to make enough money. You have to make margin. So what does that mean? What does making enough money mean? Okay, so for somebody who's starting a family business, starting bare bones, card table in your living room type stuff, and you're just getting launched into the marketplace, that means you can cover all of your main expenses, all the main expenses that you have to operate your life. Not like go on vacation 6 times a year, not like buy a new truck, not like buy a new house type stuff, but like I can make my house payment or I can make my rent payment. I can cover all of the food, shelter, clothing, all the necessities for my family, the basic necessities, not like, all those frill items that we would like to have, but we don't necessarily need, or all those freaking subscriptions that get channeled into our lives through all these different apps and such. And so, not all of that stuff. I'm saying basic expenses that you've covered everything. Once you've covered everything and you're making enough money for yourself, enough money means enough money to live on, that we're not in the negative each month. And every month, maybe there's, a little bit left over. So that's enough. Now, beyond enough, we have to make money beyond enough in order to be able to hire somebody. So, next question you have to answer: are you making enough money to pay someone else to work with you? So many people like to get super complicated about all of this stuff. Well, the algorithm, well, the projections are, well, this assessment of these future numbers could be if this happened. No, what are you, how much money are you making right now? And is it enough to pay somebody to come into your business to help you? If it is not, you're going to have to work harder, longer, or make some changes in the operations of your organization to be able to increase the profit that you have so that you can pay a person to come on and help you. If there's no margin, don't bring people on. Only bring people on with margin. Otherwise, you're going to have to, and sustained margin, by the way. You can't just have it for like 2 months and be like, oh, now I'm sustaining margin. No, you need to, have it for a while. Make sure it's tried and tested. And so that you actually have the money to sustain somebody's salary over a while. And I know that's scary at first because when you're just getting into the family business and stuff, and when you're just trying to understand how to do the stuff in the family business, you're like, well, you got to get better at taxing, you got to get better at accounting, you got to get better at doing whatever it is that you do to deliver your product or service. And then all of a sudden, now I need some help because 16-hour days are becoming a way of life, and that's not good. We can do this for 1 year, we can maybe do it for 2 years, but beyond that, it really sucks. We got to make some life-changing improvements here. I recently read in a book, "Thou Shalt Prosper" by uh, what's his name, Rabbi Lapin, called America's Rabbi, and he said that there was a guy who worked 14 hours a day and studied an additional 2 hours a day in the local temple. There, he was a Jew, and in New York, and he studied 2 hours a day. He still managed to work 14 hours a day, study 2 hours a day, and he's been doing that for the past 25 years. Like, man, that guy's got some gumption, right? That guy got some grit, and or he's doing something that he cares about on a mission and for a purpose. And maybe that's probably also because what okay, I'm not going to get into that, that'll just get me on like a soapbox. So all right, moving on to our subject. Otherwise, this is going to get super long, and I want to respect your time by making sure I deliver the content I promised you today. The main thing is, do you have enough money to cover yourselves? Do you have enough money to pay somebody to work with you? If you don't, start working harder until you have enough money to pay them so that you can make sure that you have a sustained ability to cover their salary. Because if they're coming into your life, if they're coming into your business, if you're inviting them into your dream, you better have enough money to pay them. Now, I understand the eventuality that might happen in business where you have a great increase in sales, like you increase 3 times the size you were, like you went from 100,000 to 200,000 to 400,000, super fast, and you need to scale, and then all of a sudden you're back down to 200,000. And what happened to all those sales? Because those sales paid for some of those team members to cover some of that workload during that period, but that was a big kind of oddball situation in your business, and now you might have to release somebody in that case. But overall, in the situation that you're operating on a normal basis, what you need to make sure you know are your numbers, and to make sure you're making enough for yourself, and you're making somebody to pay somebody to come on the journey with you. Because after all, you're inviting them into your journey, into your business, into your life. And if you're going to be doing that, into your vision, if you're going to be doing that, then you owe them the benefit of, you owe them the respect to care enough about their well-being to make sure that you can sustain the salary that you commit to. All right, so many people they miss that, or they don't care about that, or they don't know their numbers well enough to make sure that they can do that, and they disrespect people greatly because they haven't done their due diligence to be able to make sure that they can help and sustain not only their enough, but the people that they bring into their vision enough, into their business enough, over the foreseeable future. So, are you maxed out regarding how much time you can spend? This is the third question you need to ask yourself, and you can clearly see how more help will make this thing more sustainable. If you cannot clearly see how bringing on more help can make this thing more sustainable, then you don't need to do it yet. You're not quite ready. Now, if you have no idea, if you're just tired from working 10-hour days, um, well, you might need to stick at it a little longer. And I don't want you to just jump off the boat and straight into the water, because um, what happens what happens when you when you think you need help, but you don't know what the help is going to do, you'll bring the person on. They will think you're kind of dumb because you don't know what you're doing and you don't know what they need to do. And then you will move forwards without any clarity, and it will frustrate them. And then you will have expectations that are not met, and you will be frustrated at them. And all of a sudden, you're going forward in this dream that everybody had turns into a nightmare. And so that's what we don't want to happen. What we want to happen, a team member comes on to it comes to the company, meets the company, gets into the vision, starts working, starts getting energized, is involved and understands the mission clearly, understands what it is that they're doing, understands their role, and can charge forwards with excellence. And that's something that gives somebody drive, that helps somebody sustain their motivation, that helps somebody understand and dig into the objectives of the organization, and just to feel part of the team. And so when you're doing this the very first time, you got to be very careful about these things. So, all right, we're going to get into dealing with the fear and disbelief. Fear is a huge thing. Fear and disbelief are two of the biggest problems in many industries. I had a conversation this week, excuse me, with someone who has been in business for 14 years. And they're like, well, they just said just in my industry, we just can't find good help. And while I understand the heart behind that, and I understand the challenges that business owner faces, I also have been in business for a while. And I've seen lots and lots of businesses and help people work through growing their businesses. And as a result of their disbelief sometimes that they will not be able to find team members, they can't. And then all of a sudden, perspective is broadened, and they start to understand that, like, somebody helps them understand and believe that they can, and all of a sudden candidates start to come out of the woodwork. And so I want to deal with the fact that this is a real thing, and owners at different stages of the growth of the company, you will deal with this. It is a real thing. It is part of the process. And if you don't deal with it and acknowledge that it's there, then you might get swiped by it and just kind of get knocked out of the game for a little bit while you have to dust yourself off and get it back up on your feet. So we have to deal with the fear and disbelief. So in my industry, it's not possible to find great team members. Okay, the option you have is continue working 16 hours a day, or quit. Like, that's your options. Or believe that it's possible. I know it sounds silly. I know it sounds really silly. Like, that's you have to believe. Okay, a lot of things in business, you do have to just believe. But on this one in particular, honestly, I've been taken like aback by business owners after they've been operating, and they think that there's nobody in the universe that could possibly fill that position. And then they list out the position, and I'm like, man, I think I could probably find that person in just a couple weeks of searching and doing the interviewing. From my side, in your exact industry, in your exact section of what they're of your company, what they need to do. And Henry Ford really said it best when he said, whether you believe you can, or whether you believe that you cannot, you are 100% correct. And I think in business, this phrase, so many times we need to apply this, because apply it in the positive side. Because when you think you can't, you will not find the people. They do not exist, and they will not be in the woodwork. But when you think you can, when you find that, when you broaden your perspective and understand that the world is made of billions of people, and the thing that you need them to do is not that terribly specific, and it's not so specific that nobody in the world has ever done anything like that. And then if you just find and if you because if you find a great team member, the right kind of team member, we're going to talk about that in a little bit, then they will come into your company curious, ready to learn, and ready to grow. And they will learn whatever the nuances are of your organization and how you operate, and they will be able to click with it as soon as you as you bring them in and teach them how to do it. Now, I will say, at the beginning of our company, when it was just my wife and I operating, we had my wife genuinely did not. Was She was like, "Man, we are working and doing this stuff 16 hours a day. This is so complicated. I don't think I could ever train someone in a lifetime to do it." And she's kind of getting depressed about it and discouraged. And as a business background and my kind of hard charging personality, I was like, no, we can do it. We can find somebody to help us. She's like, man, I have no idea how in the world we would ever be able to find somebody to help us and train them to do this because it's so complicated. And I said, no, I really think we can. And so I started to cast a broad net, and then I went out there, did some interviews, and lo and behold, I found somebody, and he's still with us to this very day, doing freaking awesome. I'm so glad I hired him. I think he's a godsend, and he caused our organization to be able to prosper at a very critical time because he alleviated so many stress points that were existent at that time and caused us to be able to grow. And so you don't realize that the world is full of so many people, and if you let yourself get caught in the trap of disbelief that you cannot find somebody in your industry to do this job, then you won't be able to find them. But if you start to believe that you can and give it a glimmer of hope and put some energy and effort into it, you will find them. I've found business owners finding people in some of the remotest locations, small town, middle of nowhere, and they still find great team members there. They just have to do a little bit, they apply a little bit of elbow grease to find them, go out of their comfort zone to get to them, and then be able to bring them in the doors, train them, and they do an awesome job and they love serving together with you. And so I just want to encourage you, believe you can find that team member because they are there. And this isn't coming from hocus pocus. This comes from years and years and years of experience. I've been doing this stuff for 20 years. And every single time, no matter how complicated, how challenging, how dynamic this position is, how many certifications are required, you can find the team member. So believe. Now, start believing it is possible. Next, acknowledge the fear. If you think you can hire people and you have zero fear whatsoever, first of all, I have no idea how, because maybe either you're just super, super confident in all of your abilities. I don't know. But most of the rest of us, when we are hiring that very first hire, are scared to death. The interview process. How do we bring them onto our company? How do we set up a payment schedule? How do we how do we make a contract with them? How do we do the taxes? How do we do all of these things? It's incredibly daunting. And then what if I choose the wrong person after figuring all this stuff out and it costs me thousands of dollars? That is a huge problem. And it is exactly one of the reasons that I'm doing this masterclass today, because it does cost you thousands of dollars. And we've gotten pretty good over the years at hiring the right people in our company that stay here for longer periods of time. And so that's why I'm sharing that with you today, because I really want you to be able to enjoy that benefit of operating your family business. Now, fear in hiring is reduced by knowledge and practical experience. If you have none, don't expect to eliminate it completely. And don't allow fear to paralyze your forward movement. We call it analysis paralysis, right? We're analyzing the situation, we get super afraid and just go into this analysis paralysis cycle and stay there and do absolutely nothing. We've got to get out of that cycle. How do we get out of the cycle? Now, at first, if you have no practical experience hiring people, you have to learn. And the awesome thing is, you're sitting right here in front of this course today, or listening on your headphones, or running on the track while you're listening to this, and you're learning how to hire somebody for your multi-million dollar family business that you want to create or you're already operating. So, next thing you have to do is apply the information that you learn. The problem with today, the problem, I'm not going to go on a soapbox for long here, but one of the huge problems that we face in our culture is we have so much information coming at us all the time and zero application or next to zero. And when you don't apply what you have learned, it does nothing for you. A whole lot of knowledge in your head does absolutely nothing. Albert Einstein said, a person who does not do does not truly know. Okay. So learn, apply the information, and review and make new implementations. So review and edit and make new implementations. So when you have fear, learn what you need, write down what it is that you are afraid of. I'm afraid of making a bad hire because I've never had interviews before. I heard a really practical piece of advice for this was related to a different thing about men who were afraid to approach women in order to start a relationship, and that would hopefully lead to marriage. And so this consultant of such, I didn't use this consultant, by the way. I just read the story and I thought it was applicable here. um, he advised these men, whenever he would start to help them, to go out and ask, like, just go out in the public, in grocery stores or wherever, in their churches or whatever, and whatever they'd come across a single lady, ask them for their number. And what if you don't know if they're single? Well, ask them for their number anyway and see what they say. And so he would go around and they had to ask for 100 numbers from 100 ladies in that first experience, so that they would become more experienced with the process of actually asking. And when he boiled it down to such a specific number and and a very simple, unique task, they were able to do it and overcome that fear and anxiety, ultimately leading to a whole bunch of people finding their soulmates and getting married, which was really cool. I know it sounds like a little strange methodology, but the idea here is, once you start to practice what you learn and you boil it down to what you need to know, and you start to practice that, I mean, you can practice interviewing without people in the room. I mean, believe me, I know you talk to yourself all the time. Sometimes the most intelligent person you could possibly talk to is yourself. I know that I'm not saying that in a prideful way, but the point is, practice the things that you learn with this, because if you learn how, and then you do it 50 repetitions. I'm not talking like practice 2 times. I'm talking, if you're afraid, identify what you're afraid of and practice that aspect of it like 50 times. Some people do 100 times, and you will get so much more confident, even if you do it in your office alone. Then actually go take the real step and invite somebody to the interview. Now, next, start. All right. You have to get over the fear by learning, applying, and practicing and editing that process, and start. Use all your current social networks to find great people. Listen, at the beginning, you only need one person. And so many people get paralyzed. Like, where do I even find one person? There are way more than one person somewhere in the vicinity of wherever it is you are. Okay, most of us don't live way out in the middle of nowhere on a mountaintop. Okay, most of us live in a town, a rural area at least, something where there are other people in some communities nearby us. Utilize those social networks and tell everyone you know about the needs you have. You would be amazed of the people who know and love you, who know somebody who might need a job. Now, listen, not anybody who needs a job is a good candidate for a job. There might be a reason that they need a job, because nobody wants to hire them because they suck. So don't hire them either. Otherwise, your company will suck. So don't do that. But the first way you get your very first team members is using all of your social networks to the biggest advantage. I mean, we have in the very beginning, all of our social media, we posted like 5 times a week on our social media platforms saying, hey, we're looking for a new team member and we're interviewing right now for this position. The position does this. We're looking for this type of position. And this is kind of the personality we're looking for. If you're that, or if you know somebody that has that, please send this to them. And we got so many responses, and you will too. If you're moving to a new area and you have a plumbing company, post on the find the local Facebook page or TikToks and Snapchat and the other one, Instagram pages, and make sure that all of your like make an advertisement and put it on those pages. Become members of those groups, and if they give you permission to put those advertisements there, then broadcast them there. But at very minimum, you should be broadcasting it on your social media. Most people have like 600 people, maybe, I don't know, maybe not 600 people, but at least 300 people on their social media platforms. And you can put all of your advertisement on there one time a day and just say, hey guys, I'm really looking for somebody. These are the things they need to do. And contact me, DM me if you know anybody, or if you could forward this to somebody or what have you. And you will be amazed at what comes out of the woodwork. Now, what do you put in your ad? You put as much information as possible in your ad so that you can weed people out. You would be surprised. People come and like, oh, what's this position about? Well, you have to work on the computer and you have to do these things, and these are the work hours. Oh, well, I can't work those work hours. I got 6 kids. Well, why are you here then? You know, so you have a drive-by interview. The very first one's 30-minute interview, and typically I like to do these online just to have a drive-by to make sure that everything that they've understood the ad, that everything has been clearly, they've connected the dots that this might be an opportunity that they could take advantage of and come join us. And then um, after that, we can get into the more meat of the interview process. But you need to put as much information as possible on your ad to weed people out. Are you in person? Do they have to be in person at at a location X hours a day? If that's the case, put it on there. What are they going to do? What are the key result areas for what they're going to do? These are the things that they'll be responsible for as right when they come into the company. Those need to go on there. A brief description of the job, and how much how much money they're going to be making. And those things will help weed out most people. And don't be afraid of criticism. People will criticize you. Just accept it. Like, it's going to be part of the process. So if people criticize it, consider it a good thing. It means you're actually doing something. People who do nothing never get criticized. But people who actually do anything get criticized, or get advice given to them, or get direction, or counsel, or whatever they call it. But you will get criticized. It doesn't matter. It's water off a duck's back. Just keep going. Put as much information in the ad as possible to weed anyone out who will not fit that position. Let them weed themselves out before they actually get to the interview. That will save you a ton of time, work, and wasted interviews. Now, at this time, when you are working on this issue for your organization, you need to understand if this is the very first hire you're ever doing, or maybe it's a very, maybe it's up to till the fifth hire that you're doing. Um, this is probably the number one most important task besides staying afloat in your company. So you have to treat it as such and invest that time in this task. If you do not invest the time in the task of hiring someone because you're a little afraid, because you're not sure if there's somebody who can do it, because you just don't know how to do it, or just because you're afraid of the criticism you'll receive once you put the stuff out in the marketplace, then you will prolong this issue of not having somebody to help you. And if you're already working 16-hour days, like there were periods of time in our business at the very beginning when my wife and I we worked 18 hours a day, and we got up at like 3 a.m. to work on deliveries for the next day. And so, I mean, it can get tough. And if you're doing that, if you're in that stage, you have to make this a priority. It's like that saying for that financial counselors use. When you are in a mess financially and you need help financially, how do you pay? Like, how do people who provide financial counseling make money? Because the people who are there counseling have no money or are having trouble with money. So, how in the world do they make sure that they pay them? And it's all about getting priorities straight. What will I prioritize to do in order to be able to to make this change in my life? And so, making that a priority in your business for this period is paramount. You are doing all the daily operations to stay afloat. And this is the number one most important thing. Believe me, the person that you hire, you will understand very quickly after you hire them whether or not you placed the correct emphasis on it as you went through the process, because they will create a lot of either anxiety, animosity, frustration, or they will be one of the biggest blessings that you encounter in your process of building your business. So at this time, you have to make it a number one priority. Like, I come to work and I do my stuff, but every free minute that I have, I am spending finding people. And how do I find people? I'm making my ad, I'm making my post on social media, I'm calling churches in the area. If you're a person of faith and you go to church, that is a wonderful place to find incredible talent. And you can find people. Just call up the pastors of the nearest 10 churches in your areas and say, hey, my name is so and so. I go to such and such church. I'm a business owner and I'm looking for somebody to help me with this. Do you have anybody in your congregation that might be able to help with that? And you would be amazed how many times that pastor or that administrator can help with can pass your information to someone in the church and help with that. And by the way, you just better be in a good relationship with the church that you're going to, because he's probably going to call your pastor and say, hey, I just talked to so and so. He said he has a job opening. What do you think about him? And you better have a good reputation with that guy, because otherwise, that's not going to go well. And they're not going to pass any information on to you. So I've actually found many, many team members just by using this method alone. And so I highly recommend it. There's like 1,000 churches in every city in the United States, and so we've got plenty of opportunities out there to meet and greet people and to reach out and actually find team members. So I really encourage you this. Just be careful. Sometimes people think mission-driven company means charity, and that is absolutely not what it means. We are companies in business to make a profit, and you actually have to work when you're here. And so some people that just come from church circles, I'm one of those people in the church circle, so I can talk about us because it is my family, church family. Jesus and all these people, they're my people. So I'm talking about all of us, right? So you just have to be careful that you just don't allow um, don't allow that aspect of, oh, well, it's a business and I'm a Christian, they're a Christian, and they just have to, they have to be charitable and make my life better. No, they're supposed to come into your company and make the entire organization better for everyone as we continue to grow this thing. And it's going to be tough and difficult, and you should understand it as you come in. All right. All right. So create and document interview process as you look for new people to hire. As you start this process, you probably did not have an interview process because it's probably the first time. Or if you've been in business for a while and you still don't have an interview process, which I've seen many, many times. We just hire somebody somehow when we need them. Well, that is a terrible way to run your interviewing and onboarding process. You need to have a process written out, clear to define, so everybody who's involved, of course, at first maybe it's only you who's involved, but whoever's involved understands what to do next. Because when you're just going about the operations of your company and you're just carrying things forwards, and sometimes you're just putting out fires all day long, it feels like, because you got to have another team member to come help, then um, then you sometimes forget what the next step is, or maybe you skip it, or maybe you just try to not acknowledge it or not deal with it because it's challenging. And then all of a sudden, you make a bad hire, a couple bad hires, and things start working really poorly, and you get really discouraged. And so I want to keep you from that discouragement. Now, rule number one: never hire someone from the first two interviews. Notice I said two. Do more interviews. I, I have seen people hire or think that they will make a hiring decision after the first interview. And they're like, how many interviews did you do? Well, I'm having so much trouble with this team member. They're causing so much problems. They don't want to work. They're on their phone all the time. I just can't make it. They're not motivated. Like, well, how long did you spend doing interviews and onboarding this person? It's like, well, I had three candidates come in and I interviewed each one of them. I picked the one I liked best. And I was like, well, there's your problem. You're not very good at choosing people on the first interview. In fact, don't feel bad. Nobody is. And I honestly, so over the years, I've learned, the more interviews you do with people, the better. Because you've got to think about this like a relationship. If you just meet somebody one time, do you know everything about them? And when they come into your life and are working on your baby, your business, they can't treat it with that care. And you don't know if they will treat it with that care that you want them to treat it with if you don't know who they are. And you can't know who they are unless you build somewhat of a relationship. And I know it's messy, and I know it's hard, and I know it takes time, and I know it's frustrating, but you know what's more frustrating? Working with somebody for 6 months, finding out they're a terrible fit, having paid them a salary the whole time, they showed up late, steal while they're there, have all kind of disciplinary issues, and at the end you have to freaking fire them. That's horrible. So if you want to avoid all that, why don't we start on the front end hiring well? Now, don't ever hire for somebody after the first interviews. Do not ever do it. If you do it, that's on you. You just learned here in this masterclass that you shouldn't do it. Pointing at the screen because that's where my slides are. If you do it after this, that's on you, and you will probably be very, very sad that you did because it probably won't end up well. Now, second rule, take more time. Relationships and trust are built over time. You can't build a relationship in just a couple interviews. And essentially, you are building a relationship with this person, building trust, building connection, building an ability to communicate clearly in your process of interviewing and finding out whether or not they're a good fit for your company. Now, I recommend a minimum of 6 interviews per candidate. 6 interviews per candidate? Are you nuts? Who has that kind of time? Remember the example I just gave you? If you don't take that time and then you get into the point where they're doing a terrible job and they don't even want to show up, or they're not doing anything that you thought they were supposed to, that you thought they were supposed to do, that you communicated to them that they were supposed to do, and they're still not doing it, and they don't care what you think. When you get into that scenario and you've been there a couple times, you will find out very quickly that you should have taken more time and that you needed to implement a process that where actually you can verify, build relationships with these people and see if they're a good fit for your company. And I know it's hard, and I know it's messy, and I know it takes a lot of relational common sense, but you really have to pay attention here, and you have to do more interviews. Now, so you ask, what the heck do I do in the interviews? If I'm having 6 interviews, what in the world do I even talk about? I know their name, I know their work history, I asked them if they wanted the job. The salary's fine. What else do I talk about? So, what I recommend and what makes it a little easier is if you prepare 10 questions that are not yes or no answers. And if you prepare 10 questions that are not yes or no answers, and actually, if you want some interview questions that will help you help you with your process, please uh, pop a note in the chat, and I will make sure that they get to you because we have some of our favorite interview questions. We have some of our favorite interview questions that I would be more than happy to share with you, and you can ask these questions, and we have a database of like a couple hundred by now, but anyways, I can share some of these questions with you so that you can take and start your interview process, and as you go into the interviews, ask different, takes 10 questions and open-ended questions that they actually need to provide a elongated answer to, and listen to the answers. The greater part of the interview process is you listening and trying to understand from the words that they're telling you and the mannerisms that they are demonstrating. Um, is this person a great fit for my company? Will they care as much as I care? Will they invest as much as I invest? Will they become a plus to this company, or will they become a minus? And as you listen to their answers, then you will be able to find out. Now, what you do not want to do is pitch your company to the person the entire interview. That is a huge mistake that so many entrepreneurs make at the very beginning. They're kind of nervous. They don't really know what to say. They're not really fully prepared. And so they come into the interview process and they're like, um, so, did you have a job before? Yes, I did have a job before. I worked there. Did you like your job? Well, I didn't like my job. That's why I quit. Um, what else do I say? Oh, well, if you work here, Well, we have a really nice company. We do X, Y, and Z, and these are all the cool things we do, and this is how we do it, and this is the reason why we do it, and blah 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 blah. And you get into talking about all the pluses and amazing things about your company, and all of a sudden it feels like you're doing a marketing session to the person you're supposed to be interviewing. No, you are there to listen to their answers and find out if they're going to come in and help you grow this organization. They're not there to listen to you pitch your company to them. Your biggest focus should be on finding, just really analyzing who they are, their past, present, and what they think about their future in order to be able to understand if they're coming into your organization to fit. Listen more than you talk. You should talk about 20, maybe 30% of the time, and listen for the rest. So you're doing 70, 80% of listening to this person answer the questions and watching their mannerisms. Do they shift every time you ask a question? Can you not stare you in the eye? Do they feel like they're being dishonest? Do they, whatever it is, do you just not like how their body language is towards you, and you just don't enjoy being in their presence? Those are all really good indicators for you to not hire this person. You know what? I know it's not very, like in the professional world, you should be able to accept everyone from every background. Well, says no entrepreneur ever, because if you don't like them, you shouldn't hire them, no matter how many qualifications they have, and no matter how cool they look. If you do not like talking and interacting with this person, because you will be talking and interacting with this person on a day-to-day basis in a very intimate setting for a really long time. And if you're going to do that and bring somebody into that space that you do not enjoy being around, you're shooting yourself in the foot and you're causing your company anxiety. And so many business owners do this. Please, after you hear this masterclass, don't be one of those who does that. Now, what you can do is set up 10 questions that are open-ended questions per interview. Interviews should be between 30 minutes and an hour, depending on what the interview is. You can do online interview. I typically do some of them online. I do some of them in person, wherever practical. And then you can, just choose which environment and how you want to do it. That's up to you. But you prepare those 10 questions at every interview. That way, by the time you're done working through the questions, you're done working through the questions, and you say at the end, well, thanks so much, John, for coming in today. Really appreciate the interview, and this has been a great experience. So thank you so much, and I'll review the answers that we have, and I'll go over this, and then I'll get back to you with an answer. And if it's the first interview, you'll be like, so John, great verifying all your information. This is the drive-by interview for us. We never hire somebody on the first 1 till 5 interviews. And so if you want to work here, if you're going to be joining a part of our organization, the process is we do, or maybe it's 6 or maybe it's 10. Like my interview now, for new people, is closer to 10. Anyways, depending on the position, especially, but not less than 6. Okay, so and then you just explain to them. So the interview process for us takes such and such time, and we will do such and so many interviews, or at least so many interviews before we make our final decision. So I don't want you to be discouraged or kind of left in the dark. That's how we do things around here, and that's how we find people that best fit our organization and our culture. So we'll review these answers, and I'll get back to you the next time. And that's it. Done. Interview's done. 30, 40 minutes, or 30 to 60 minutes, interview's done. You go on your merry way. You review the answers. You think about it. Do you want to bring them to another interview or not? If you want to learn more about them, or if you think they might be a good fit, now's the time we can start interviewing intermediary tasks, like have them do a personality test. Does their personality match yours or match the position? Do they have a monthly budget? Really? It's important. It's so important. Honestly, it's super important for Christian companies, because so many people who come into Christian companies, especially if you're doing the advertisement, like I said, about to the churches, and the people come to your company and they think that just because it's a Christian, a company owned by a Christian, that somehow God will provide for every need. No, God can do math. People sometimes can't, but God definitely can do math. And so if what you're paying them doesn't meet their monthly needs, and they don't know that before they come into your company, you're not doing your job as a leader or as a great employer, serving them well by bringing them into the company, knowing whether or not that money actually provides for all their needs. I'm not saying you have to get nitty gritty, and I wouldn't recommend. I mean, that's not necessary, but at least making sure that they have a budget that demonstrates them living on this amount of money is them being able to prosper in their situation. And if it's not, it becomes very clear. And honestly, one of the interviews that we do is about this subject, and it's typically not very long. I have them fill out the budget form beforehand. They send it in, and we just go over it in the interview just to make sure that we check that box off that the leader actually did his due diligence or her due diligence to make sure that budget fit that team member's life. If they get hired here, doing them serving them as best as we possibly can. And so the leadership part for new team members starts in the interview process. And by the way, if somebody says, "Well, screw you, that interview process is too long," or, "Well, you know what, I really don't have time for that many interviews, and so can we do something about that?" No, that's a direct disqualifier. So you just don't like if they don't want to do it. That's a great. It's or super because all the it's like immediately they're not a good fit. And so, if they have the willingness to go through the process and they have the tenacity to get through it, that's part of helping weed people out as well. Are they going to be able to make it through the process of your interview, of interviewing and getting to your organization to be able to actually become a productive member? Or are they going to be weeded out somewhere along the way because they just don't want to do it anymore? They're tired of it. They won't tolerate it. They just don't want to fill out the form. They don't want to do the personal mission statement. They don't want to do a monthly budget. They don't want to do a personality test. They just don't want to deal with it. If that's the case, great. That means they don't belong here. And so we can go focus our attention more on the candidates that want to be here. And and that's how you deal with that. All right. So as your team grows, I will say, you get one, two, five, six, seven, 10 people on your team, you'll be able to start having multiple people interview. And I would highly recommend this. Don't just be the only person who ever interviews people. As the owner, you kind of feel like you should and you have to. But listen, you do interviews, but have the leaders in the other sections, or if they're not leaders yet, they're just the longest standing employees in some area. Just have them jump on and do interviews. We're like, I don't know how to do an interview. Give them 10 questions, tell them to ask the questions, and then ask them about the result. Have them write their perspective from the answer. That's it. That's enough. That will help you to be able to at least spread out the responsibility and be able to spread out the burden of get better feedback from a different perspective on whether or not that's a good hire. At the beginning, you don't have the benefit of that. And so I know it's a little bit challenging. I work through it too, and you can too. Don't worry about it. It's okay. But once you get more team members on, you can add more team members. You're like, okay, so next interview you'll be having with John. Next interview we'll be having with Sally. Next interview is actually going to be with me again. And you do that one, two, or three cycles, and but before you know it, you've had like 8, 10 interviews, and you're like, oh wow, that went by pretty quick. And you just have to make sure those people schedule them and do them as quickly as possible. So I recommend if you're like you really need this position very badly, then close the gap in how long you do in between each interviews. Like do if you can get candidates to come every other day, do it. Like have have all the interviews in 3 weeks if you can, all 10, and then be able to bring them in and hire them. And I know it sounds like a lot of interviews and a lot of work, and it really is. But if you do it right, it's one of the biggest blessings of your company. So follow that example. Now, what type of person are you looking for? This is why I said if you want to know about um, some of the questions, interview questions that would help you to understand these attributes, then go ahead and send us a message because I'll be happy to share some of those with you. Now, look, you have to look for the right type of person. Patrick Lencioni came out with a book called The Ideal Team The Ideal Team Member. I'm not getting any what is that? Commissions or kickbacks from that. It's just an amazing, incredible, powerful book on hiring the right team member for your organization, and I highly recommend it. If you're going through the hiring process right now, get the book, The Ideal Team Player. And Pat makes a really powerful statement, and he says, "What makes humble, hungry, and smart, which are characteristics I'll talk about in just a minute, attributes." Um, makes HHS powerful and unique is not the individual attributes themselves, but rather the required combination of all three. If even one of them is missing in a team, I'm sorry, an in team member, teamwork becomes significantly more difficult and sometimes not possible. And I hope you hear the power of that statement. In fact, all of my team members know this statement because we use Patrick Lencioni's material for helping us to hire people. And so um, when I say hungry, humble, and smart, my team members knows exactly what that means. Humble, being and sharing the credit for some stuff that is done. In fact, if you didn't receive sole credit for a huge win, how would you feel about that? And judging whether or not a team member would feel angry and upset, or they would feel pride in the fact that their team actually won and they were acknowledged together for that. Now, I'm not about not acknowledging the due, not giving respect where respect is due, or not acknowledgement where acknowledgement is due. But in the case where the team has achieved an objective and it has been the efforts of all of them, is this person humble enough to not just try to pull all the attention to themselves? And when people do that on a team, and you've seen it and I've seen it too, when people do that, it really stinks. And so if you want a great team member, they can't be like that. And so in their interview process, that's one of the attributes you're looking for to make sure that you avoid that type of person coming into your organization. Now, hungry. Am I interested to do no more? Am I interested to to invest, to grow, to try to make a new outcome, or creatively think about an outcome for the organization that will make life better around here? Am I ready to improve a process, a system, or just help people do something more of something that's not in my area? Am ready to do more than what my bare minimum requirements? Because you have met those people in other organizations, and you probably have seen some in a store recently when you've gone to frequent that store, where you've gone into there and they're like literally the least they could possibly do, the better. And you're like, man, if they would just try a little bit harder, they would have been a such better experience for the client. And that's the kind of person you want in your company, someone who's hungry, who actually, when somebody comes in, yes, how can I help you? Yeah, I'm so excited to be able to to be a part of the team. How can I serve you? And that they do something, they do something for you, you say thank you, and they say with pleasure. It was my pleasure to serve you today. And they like that type of person. Oh my gosh, that is amazing to have that person on your team. And that person will help you grow your company. So, and then smart, being relationally smart, knowing how to navigate interrelational nuances between different settings, whether they're in a meeting or whether in one-on-one or whether they're communicating with a colleague or a subordinate. Are they, do they have the ability to navigate those nuances with smartness, with intelligence, relational intelligence? And so that's what smart is all about. And those are the three most important things that you're looking for when you hire a new team member. Are they humble? Are they hungry? And are they smart? Now, how do we identify these attributes? You've at first, there's no other way that you can start interviewing them sorry, identifying them than interviewing them, and then experience interacting with them, which is why you can't hire on the first interview. This is exactly why. The only way to find out if somebody is humble, hungry, and smart is to be able to interview them well with the correct questions that give us answers as to whether or not these things are true about them and your experiences interacting with them. Do a walk around interview. Get them have an interview in an environment that is not traditional. Do something creative to make maybe a situation where something feels a little awkward, and find out how they react. And if they completely blow it or they have no relational intelligence whatsoever, well, thank God you found out now, so you didn't hire them. And so that's why the interviews matter so much. You're not just sitting there drilling them with questions. Go for a walk and ask questions. Walk around the block and ask questions. Talk to them in a different type of environment. Find out how they interact in a different way, in different scenarios, so that you can understand if they're a great person to come onto your team. Now, your relational intelligence. So how you identify it? interviewing experience interacting with them, and your relational intelligence. Now, if you don't feel like you have a lot of relational intelligence, or maybe if you feel like you're a super introvert and really have a hard time to dealing with this type of stuff at first, that might be a reality, and you still have to hire help. So we get the 10 questions, we make a plan for what we're going to do, and then we go do that thing exactly as we planned. That helps us to be able to eliminate that kind of resistance to doing it. And then the relational intelligence, after you go through the process of interviewing one, two, three, four, five, 10 people, you will start to get a little more relational intelligence and understand whether or not somebody will fit in your organization and whether or not they have those attributes. And that's how you start understanding. That's how you identify the attributes in the people. Give it some time, do the interviews, experience interacting with them in different ways, and then do make sure that you're growing your relational intelligence by getting practice in. Now, this is why, yes, one or two 45-minute interviews don't work. Now, as you start your search, create the position job descriptions. So, if you don't know what somebody's going to do when they come into your organization, it is one of the biggest deflators and demotivating demotivating factors that you could possibly uh, have about the scenario. So, what are the key elements? You don't have to go elaborate, you don't have to go crazy, but you do have to have these three elements. Why does the position matter? Write that down. It should be just a paragraph at the top. Why does this position matter for the organization? Write that down. Underneath that, what does the position do? Answer that question and just in statements. This is what has to be done. Now, and third thing, what is the result of the work that is done? What should the result be? Like if you're doing these things, what should that result be? You, as the business owner, need to know what the result should be. Clients are billed on time. Reconciliation happens every single month. This many sales calls is done per day. This many deals are closed, so on and so forth. You know that information from your experience working in the organization and doing the stuff that's in this position, because it's probably like your part-time job, because you're doing all the other stuff and this has to be done, but that's why you're hiring somebody to do all this stuff. So write down why the position matters, have that at the top, then what the position does. And then the third thing, make sure there's a KRA, key result area for the position. What the key KRAs are. I'm not going to say a lot more about that, but it's just something as you start the job search, make sure you start creating this. You shouldn't spend 3 weeks on this. You should be able to do this in, okay, I don't want to be unkind, but you should be able to do it in like an hour and a half. So, so don't spend 3 days on this. Figure out what you need them to do. If you have to do a little research before so that you understand, so that you can kind of get your brain wrapped around it, do that. Simply, you're like, okay, we need to hire somebody, but I'm not sure exactly what they're do. But how do we work for 2 weeks and note those things that are going to that are going to go on that job description, and just note them as you're going through the work. Okay, you know what? This is actually something this that will help you to condense your timeline as you're making the job description. It will make it much more clear. And if you know you need to make a job description for this person, and then 2 weeks later have it ready, that will kind of embrace your gain, en- engage your brain in the process of looking for those tasks that you will be able to kind of extract from the work and then deliver and impart to that person the way that they can understand it. So these are the main three elements. Make sure they're on there, and you'll at least have a basic job description set up. Now, a great team member makes the environment better, more productive, more positive. Listen to that. That's what a great team member does. Don't accept anything less. Now, it might be you're not leading well. That's also a subject for a different discussion, and we'll get to that later. But a great team member makes the environment better, makes it more productive and more positive. If they are a constant drag, it's your fault for letting them stay there, or it's your fault for not being clear enough or leading them well. So we'll get to that later, but that's a really important point. They do their job and they do more than their job. They take initiatives based on the shared values of your company. And is not a constant source of anxiety and frustration. That's what a great team member looks like. They're incredible to have on board. And the opposite goes when they're not. They make the environment more negative, less productive, less positive. They don't do their job, or they barely do their job and don't ever pass the well done bar. And they don't take initiative because they want to go home early. Like it's it's 4:30. I want to get out of here by 4:45, even when they know work time ends at 5. And they're not a constant sort of source of anxiety and frustration. Do they drag tons of problems to work and spread them everywhere and create this negative vibe? That should never be a reality. And if it is a reality in your organization or in your team, then you've got to deal with that. We'll talk about that in the days ahead, but that's not the subject of this masterclass. Now, I want to thank you for spending this time with me and invite you to the live that I'm just about to go do right now. I'm going to be live where I'm just going to be in a more casual format. You can pop on there in TikTok, and I'll be talking about this stuff and interacting with whoever joins. And the next masterclass. So we talked about that the great team member. This one right here, a great team member makes the environment better, more positive, more productive. All those great things. But listen, how to make sure you're doing your part to eliminate frustration and anxiety after the hire. Before you just fire somebody because they're not that, you need to know that you've done your part. And that's what I'm going to talk about, how to know exactly how to know you have done everything possible on from your side to make sure the team member can launch into the work and do an amazing job. And if you have done all that and they're still not super productive, positive, and they're creating this kind of this negative environment, then it's them, and it's time to figure out how to take the next step. So we're going to talk about that, how you as a leader can do that in the next session. Make sure you join me next masterclass, 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern. Where we're going to be talking about how to make sure you eliminate frustration and anxiety after the hire. Thanks for spending this time with me. I hope you got something really valuable out of it. And if you did, please drop it in the chat and let me know. I'd be very, very happy to hear about it and how you are succeeding and growing your company through the application of what we just talked about today. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next masterclass.